Hello and welcome to the Sound on Sound podcast, which is in our People and Music Industry channel. I'm Hugh Robjohns, I'm the technical editor of Sound on Sound, and today I'm talking with Sean Karpowicz, who's the Managing Director of Cranborne Audio. It's a relatively new British pro audio manufacturer, and it launched its first product, which was the Camden 500 preamp, just a couple of years ago at NAMM in 2018. So hello Sean, nice to talk to you.
Hello Hugh, always a pleasure to talk to you.
I should point out for our listeners that with social distancing and shielding and all that stuff, which is still in force, you're in your offices, which I think are in Potter's Bar, aren't they, on northern outskirts of London?
We are indeed, yes, on Cranborne Road in the Cranborne Industrial Estate.
And I'm in my home studio here in Worcester, so the wonders of technology are letting us talk without actually seeing each other.
Amazing, isn't it, Hugh? You know?
So perhaps we should start with a quick rundown then of where Cranborne Audio began and the people who were behind it all.
Right, yeah. So the four founding members of Cranborne Audio are me, Sean Karpowicz, Edward Holmes, who's our mad genius director of R&D, Elliot Thomas, who's our product manager, and Andy Pat, who is our creative director. So us four met just right next to our building here in the Cranborne house in the Cranborne Industrial Estate on Cranborne Road here in Potter's Bar when we were all working at Soundcraft together in 2013.
Okay, you don't sound like you come from these parts.
I don't know what you mean, Hugh. No, no, of course not. It is not the new London accent, although I do live in London since 2013. I married English and decided to settle in the UK because, you know, with what the great weather and all the fantastic food, why would I not move to the UK? You know.
So, which part of America are you from?
I'm originally from New Jersey, yeah. So just outside New York City. I was very spoiled to grow up where I did, thanks to all the amazing studios, all the amazing music that we had at our disposal. Yet in the outskirts, so a little less crammed and a little more cleaner air to breathe.
Okay, so your background's not in manufacturing as such then?
Well, no, actually. So, oddly enough, my university degree is actually in history of political science and journalism. So nothing at all to do with what I do now. But my dad was he was an electrician, and it all started with guitar amps. I wanted to build my own guitar amp and stuff when I was a teenager, and my dad helped me, and that kind of fermented my love for electronics and audio electronics specifically, and the appreciation for craftsmanship and how to make really nice equipment.
Excellent. Okay. So I gather the whole team are musicians, actually.
Yeah, well, certainly me and Elliot are. Ed's learning. Ed's background's actually quite fascinating. He now plays guitar, but Ed was never really a music type. Unlike most of the electronics engineers and audio designers in our industry, most of whom are usually musicians and audio guys. As an example, Graham Blythe, the co-founder of Soundcraft, who's, one of our great heroes. We love Graham. And he was, in fact, Ed's kind of mentor. Graham kind of took Ed on as his protege when Ed was at Soundcraft. And, Graham is an unbelievable organist and concert pianist, and that's how he got into audio electronics. Well, Ed is quite anachronistic in that he's a physicist. He's an engineer that got into audio for the fascination of technology and the electronics. So a little different than your typical audio designer in that respect.
Yeah.
And then Andy Pat, he's just a brilliant, he just loves branding and visual aesthetics and stuff like that. And he was drawn to audio by just the quirky nature of our industry. There's not many industries that have the sort of passion that our industry has, and that's what Andy Pat really loves about what we do, is just how passionate our user base is.
Okay, so that's fascinating. So you all met up at Soundcraft. You all came from that company. What made you take the step into independence?
Yeah, well, it wasn't exactly our choice. Unfortunately, both Andy Pat and Elliot were made redundant at Harman when the Potter's Bar office was closed. And Ed and I, we fortunately still had our jobs, but without the wider team and without the focus and everyone on the same page, then it just made it kind of difficult for us to be able to do the sorts of products that we wanted to do. And especially without Elliot and Andy, we formed quite a nice little team at Soundcraft. And, taking a couple of those guys away is like removing an arm or removing a leg. It doesn't quite work the same way after you do that. So shortly thereafter, gave my notice because I realized what the situation was. And I knew I couldn't do what I wanted to do, unfortunately, given the changes at Harman. So Ed and I both resigned as well after the redundancies of the Potter's Bar office.
Right.
So, but we loved our time at Soundcraft. I mean, part of the reason why we named the company Cranborne Audio is because it was an homage to the spirit and the work atmosphere that we had there. We just had a fantastic time working together. And, at Soundcraft, there were just loads of immensely knowledgeable people that had been working on audio circuits for 30 years. And the amount of knowledge in that building was just absolutely unbelievable. And we were all like sponges, quite honestly, just taking in as much knowledge as possible and really just absolutely enjoying designing audio products. But it was a difficult thing because other people got involved and other people who didn't have the same values that we had and the same dedication to doing things the right way, quote unquote, that we wanted to do them. So when we all left and went our separate ways, I really missed it, as did Ed, as did Elliot, as did Andy. And I just thought, you know what, guys, we can do this. We have loads of ideas. We work brilliantly together. We can make this happen. We can find a way. And so we just did. We just got together, called the guys to my house. I just chatted through some of my ideas for a brand, for how we could do this, and some products that I thought would be really cool. And the guys were just all in, and they're like, absolutely, we'd love to. And so we just head down and got on with it.
Fantastic. How do you fund a business like that? I mean, obviously, just the four of you getting together and coming up with ideas, that's not expensive. But when you go into production, that's a big outlay to get products into a finished state that you can sell to people. How do you fund something like that?
It's a great point, Hugh. Honestly, that's really the crux of it. It's hardware is really difficult because hardware is just so costly. You have startup expenses like tooling and things like that, and every prototype when you're doing small runs is very expensive to assemble and to make. So you have to purchase all the material for your big production batch up front. So you need a lot of money to do that. So yeah, once we had something tangible that we knew was real and performed like we expected it would, we brought that to various investors to show off what we could do and to give them an idea of our vision for what Cranborne Audio could be. And we were very fortunate to get some people that really believed in us and really bought into our ideas. And they're phenomenal people, and we're so thankful for them. And they still stand behind us today, which is just it's an amazing feeling to be believed in and to have people that have your back. It's really the thing that made Cranborne possible.
It's a nice story. That's good to hear.
Yeah,
so
it's nice to know that these things, there are people like that in the world, Hugh?
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. People that can recognize the value of quality rather than just the profit margin. It's
quite well said. Exactly right. Exactly.
Okay, so we've got an idea of your values here. We know that you value quality and you want to make products that people can really use and will fit in with what they do. So you started off with the Preamplifier. What made you choose that as your first product?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, the reason why we started off with the Camden 500 with the preamp was, quite frankly, we had been doing so much work on preamps at Soundcraft. We were focused on delivering things like upgraded VI series preamp, the Ghost preamps that were put in the Signature series consoles. We did a lot of these sorts of things, and because we worked on a lot of different sorts of preamps, Ed specifically got a lot of ideas on, this topology has this advantage. This topology has that advantage. I like how this sounds. You like how this sounds. This is punchier. This is more dynamic. This gives more linear frequency response, so on and so forth. So we had just been exposed and worked on so many preamps that we just were percolating with ideas for preamps and what could be a better quote unquote preamp. And I mean, I know you love preamps, Hugh, but the cool thing about preamps is it's actually one of the more difficult things to make, quite frankly, with the voltages that you're dealing with, the very weak signal that you get from a microphone and how low noise and how much gain you need to add. I mean, a preamp is very difficult to make. And we thought we could do something that was really quite special. And we thought that was quite a good statement to make. It's maybe the cleanest, most transparent preamp in existence, whilst also being the most characterful. It's quite a nice story, quite a nice statement as your first product. That's really why we wanted to start with the Camden 500.
Okay, that's a good point, because a lot of people would have gone out there and just made a clone of a 1073 or an API or something that people would recognize. But you didn't do that. You went out and built what is, as you say, probably one of the cleanest, nicest preamps that there's around at the moment. But then you came up with this Mojo idea, which makes it all manner of different kinds of preamp, all at the same time. Was that the idea from the outset? Did this Mojo thing, was that in the back of your mind when you started, or did that come along later?
Yeah, so it was actually in the front of my mind. I think the opus miranda I put forth to the team when we were designing the Camden is, we want the cleanest, most phase linear. I think phase linearity is actually a really underrated thing when you're talking about preamps. It makes a massive difference to the sound. It's just much clearer, much more natural, much punchier. So I really wanted a very clean front end and phase and frequency linear front end. So that was from my experience as an audio engineer previously. But at the same time, as I was explaining, sometimes there are those moments where you actually want that vintage character. So you have this really clean front end with this variable saturation that you can add in, but doesn't have all the downsides of that normally. So it was a lot of experimentation, to answer your question, Hugh. So we tried a lot of things, and we let our audio analysis equipment and our ears do the talking. We didn't make a lot of assumptions. We just wanted to test and understand how good would this sound, and the result of Ed's design work and our tuning and all the rest of it is the Canvas 500 and that perfectly variable saturation circuit, but completely bypassable as well.
Yeah, it's a really nice preamp. It was when I reviewed it back in, I think it was September 2018, wasn't it? Somewhere around there.
Indeed, yeah. You were the first industry reviewer in the world to hear the Canvas 500.
Oh well, there you go. There's a privilege. Really taken with it. It's a very impressive thing.
Oh, thanks to you.
It's the versatility of it. That's the big advantage.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now you've just repackaged it into a rack mounting form. In the EC2, which I actually have on my desk in front of me now as we speak.
I heard that you might be reviewing the EC2.
I will indeed, and of course that review will be out by the time this podcast hits the airwaves.
Oh, very nice.
But again, sort of sticking in your innovative way of things, it's not just a preamp. It's a preamp with built-in headphone monitoring that's very versatile and flexible as well.
Yeah, I think it's. There's so many things we can say about Cranborne and what our values are. What I'd say about products is we always start from the application side. Especially Elliot and I, we record a lot, we play a lot of music, and we know what helps. Because we do it all the time, we know the things that make a difference. So one of the things that's a no-brainer for me is just, when's the last time you tracked somebody but didn't need to provide them a headphone mix, And by the same token, when was the last time you did mic placement and stuff like that, and you didn't want to hear it as you were, adjusting things in the tracking room or in the live room or whatnot? Mm-hmm. So I think it's from our experience of actually using equipment and applying that knowledge and just asking questions. We can just that assumption of, well, why is it done that way? It can be done better. Why hasn't this been done this way before? And it's a slightly different approach, and I think it's that approach that really lends itself well to our product design and our concepts.
It's quite innovative. I think I was looking around when I was reviewing this EC2 to think, well, how many other preamps have headphone amps in? And there are a few. There's a couple of them. But
recently, yeah, I think some people might have taken notice.
but so many of them don't have the external input. So although you could monitor what the microphone's doing, you can't listen to a cue track coming in. So it doesn't really work as a monitoring system.
Exactly. And one of the things I always found is, I've been in a lot of recording studios, and you see racks of some of the most gorgeous equipment you can imagine. But one of the things I've always noticed is the headphone amps are always not on par with the rest of the equipment. Mm-hmm. It's usually an afterthought. It's just cheap and cheerful headphone amps bunged in the rack and whatever. It's good enough. But headphone amps, to me, especially when you're tracking, you want to hear every single detail. If there's snare resonance or if there's a nasty, harsh frequency on a guitar, I want to hear it. I want to be able to pick that out. And if you're using substandard headphone amps that won't reveal those sorts of things, it's going to affect your recordings.
Yeah.
So for us, it just made perfect sense to think of it as almost a studio front end. It's your window both in and out of your recordings.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, tell me about the other two products that you currently have, your 500 racks. What's the thinking behind those?
Yeah, so I love the 500 series format. I think it's a brilliant format. What's great about it is the options, of course. I don't even know how many 500 series modules exist. Upwards of 500-600, something like that.
I think so.
Yeah, and there's no other format like it that has that. In my younger days, I was a guitarist by trade, and of course, you have the pedalboard syndrome. A little bit of that Pokemon collect them all kind of mindset. And 500 series has that sort of appeal. But the thing about 500 series is it requires a lot of equipment to make it happen. Mm-hmm. Of course, everyone's going to be using a DAW, so you already need an interface. You probably need a monitor controller. You probably need, headphone amps. There's a lot of equipment that you need, and they're all individual boxes. And then, each one of those boxes is a metal chassis and a power supply inside of it and stuff like that. And all those things add up. So the concept with the 500RA and the 500ADAT is, rather than having 5 boxes with 5 power supplies and all this cabling, just put it all into one box. And I mean, everyone's going to need an interface with their 500 series rack. Everyone is going to basically need a monitor controller to listen to it. So just put it all in one box, one power supply, one box, and then pass that savings on to people. And you have the extra advantage of this very cute, very portable format. And maybe that's something we actually underestimated, is how many people really love a mobile recording setup. A lot of people will just hop on a plane to go to a writing session. And then this way you have your sound, you have your channel strip with you wherever you go, your sound. It's quite a cool, powerful thing. And that's what I think I love about the 500 series and our two racks more than anything, is every customer's 500 series rack, their 500R8, their 500 is a mark of their character and of their style and of who they are and their tone choices and whatnot. And embracing that individual creativity, that's what music is, isn't it? I mean, that's what art is. It's a way of expressing your personality. And that's just a very beautiful aspect of the 500 series rack that we really wanted to embrace and try to facilitate with the 500R8 and the 500
Excellent. You mentioned that, with the possible exception of yourself, and we'll accept that you're an adopted Brit now, the whole team is British. Is your
By the way, thank you very much, Hugh. That's one of the kindest things anyone's ever said.
With your manufacturing, is that done in the UK, or do you ship that out to the Far East? One of the things with your products is not only are they extraordinarily good quality, but they're actually very good value for money as well.
Thanks for highlighting that, Hugh. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we wanted to do was we wanted to give people who feel like we do, give them a chance to get that really desirable sound. And the thing is, in order to do that, it's very challenging. It's extremely challenging, Hugh, and especially making in the UK and doing that is very difficult. So you're right. For the moment, we do make the three products, 500R8, 500 and Camden 500 in the UK. But interestingly, we are about to move actually to a world-class manufacturing facility that is not in the UK. Now, the reason why we originally made in the UK was that we wanted to control everything. Well, fortunately, thanks to our network, we had a UK manufacturer who was willing to work with us. And it was just down the road from us in Dunstable, in Bedfordshire. And, when we were making our first production runs, all of us were in the factory, making sure that everything was going together correctly. There were no issues, just because we wanted to control things. We wanted to make sure everything going out the door was absolute top quality, and we could really only do that with our budget in the UK. But the thing is, now that we're getting to a point where we're having a little bit of success, we're selling a good amount of product, and we're establishing a reputation for ourselves, there are new doors opening for us. So I'm very excited that actually the EC2 that you have is one of the first products coming out of our new manufacturing facility. Now, it just so happens to be in the Far East, but really what's more important than geography or country where it appears is what is the capability of that manufacturer. What quality can they achieve? And we made it work before in the UK because we were there all the time and we had our finger on it and we could do it. But now we're moving to a partner who is, they're the type of people that make the stuff that you get in electronics stores. We're talking about a quality level that is, absolute world class. And whilst we were happy with our quality in the UK, this is a class above, quite honestly. And what's nice is we're passing those savings on to the customer. If there are any savings, in a lot of cases there aren't, because to go to a better manufacturer, it costs more money. But we want to put as much as possible into the product quality. We want to get all of our products as absolutely perfect as we possibly can, and but also at a reasonable price. And that's the really tricky part to do.
Yeah. How do you maintain the quality when you can't see it? I mean, when it's in the UK, you can make absolutely sure that the components are the components you want and not some kind of cheaper alternative. And all the sort of quality control, product testing stuff, you can keep an eye on when it's in the UK. How do you do that when it's in a different factory in a different part of the world?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Exactly right. And that's what makes a world-class manufacturing company a world-class manufacturing company. There's a lot of traceability techniques and oversight and auditing that these sorts of manufacturers do. Right now, I can send an email to our manufacturer and say, hey, I'd like a full traceability report on all products between these serial numbers. And it's just a report that they export.
Oh, right.
Whereas in the UK, we didn't have that sort of thing. We had to visit the factory and see it with our own two eyes, which is the old school way, which is lovely. There's something really nice about that. But these modern kind of world-class manufacturing facilities, they have such immense oversight on their operation, and everything is so, it's a very efficient machine, and the way that they do it is absolutely unbelievable, quite frankly, Hugh. It's just, it's really quite something. Honestly, I didn't think we would be able to get a world-class manufacturer like this anytime soon. I thought we'd have to grow the company for a few more years and get a lot more business before we'd be able to do this. But I think, our reputation for quality and whatnot, turns on a lot of world-class manufacturers. They want to be associated with the best products.
Yes.
So people want to work with us. It's a fantastic position to be in.
I can tell you're enthusiastic about it.
Thanks, you. Yeah.
Presumably, if you're manufacturing abroad, there's a greater time lag from when you say, start production to when a container full of boxes comes back to you.
Indeed.
Is that a significant time lag?
Yeah, it's a huge aspect to consider, and that actually is one of the reasons why we didn't do this move sooner. You have to pay for parts up front. When those units dispatch to factory, you have to pay for them. Well, if they have 40, 50 days to reach the UK, that's hundreds of thousands of pounds on the water.
Yeah.
Cash flow and funding this sort of move, that was a really important bit to consider that we had to get right. We have a lot more what they call working capital in our supply chain now in manufacturing goods than we had previously. We were a lot leaner before when we were in the UK. We were a lot more nimble. Now we have to buy a lot more product. We have to plan far more in advance, but it's actually really nice doing it that way. It's less firefighting. It's more planning.
Yes.
And when it works, it goes much smoother actually.
And what about protecting your intellectual property? Because it's moved out of your control to a degree now. Is that a concern of yours?
Well, no, it's not. So we don't release any schematics, full stop. Schematics are the key IP that we have. When we use a manufacturer, we have to provide a bill of materials, which is just what parts we use. And we have to provide like the layout and the mechanical files, but that doesn't tell you anything. That doesn't, like, you wouldn't understand how the Camden works just based off the Gerbers and the bill of materials. You would have absolutely no idea. And if you change one component on the Camden, forget it, the whole thing breaks. So we still have control of the IP, but you're absolutely right, it's a risk. A lot of people like to patent things. We're not too keen on patenting for various reasons. First of all, it's very costly to patent things, and secondly, the patent's only as good as the country where it's patented in. And if there are countries that don't really honor patents, then the patent's not even worth the paper it's written on.
Sure.
Unfortunately,
and you've got to give everything away to do the patent in the first place, haven't you? You have to make the information public. So.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to. And in fact, in order for a patent to be defensible, you have to be very specific. You really have to share, really all your design secrets in order for it to be protected. And then, if they're not willing to grant you the protection, all you did was just do all the reverse engineering work for them in your patent. So we don't really think of patents as a way of securing IP. One thing we do is we do design registrations and trademarks.
Right.
So all our products are design registered in the country where they're manufactured. And of course we have global trademarks. So we have trademarks in the EU, in the UK, in the US. And so even if somebody were to copy one of our boxes, if it says Cranborne Audio on it or if it says Camden on it, they're not going to have much of a market to sell their counterfeit products to.
Yeah. So the EC2, the first product you've manufactured abroad, obviously you finished all the files for that some time ago. So you've had some time to work on some new stuff since then. What can you tell me about what new stuff you're working on?
Oh, well. Well, obviously, being that our background is from Soundcraft, the first question we usually get, they go, all right, guys, so when are you making the mixer? It's a good question. So what I'd say is before you have to make a mixer, you have to make a full channel strip, don't you? And so far we only have a preamp. So you can imagine what's probably coming down the pike soon, Hugh.
Are you going to carry on with the 500 series approach?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, we love the 500 series format. API really deserves a lot of credit for opening up the standard and for allowing people to do that. So absolutely. We'll I would say any analog processor that we make, it would have a Rackmount format and a 500 series format for sure.
And what about expanding the company? Do you have plans to take on more staff? Will you need to take on more staff as your sales expand?
Actually, us four are the 4 founding members, but we're actually up 10 members of our team now.
Much bigger than I thought.
More than half are engineers, though, Hugh. So our focus really is R&D. We are an R&D-led company. We want our innovations, our product design to lead the way and to speak for us. As a startup, as a young company, you really have to prioritize. And where we spend our money is where we think it counts most on the products. Getting the products to be as good as they possibly can, both in the performance, but also in the quality and the service. The fewer issues you have with your products, the more profitable your company will be. So we make sure we invest in people like really good production engineers, mechanical engineers, electronics engineers, software engineers, people who will make the difference on the product, both to make it more desirable, but also make it superior in terms of the yields and the quality, which will improve our profitability long term by not having service issues and whatnot. If we have money to spend on more staff, we want more engineers. Always more engineers, more engineers. That's where we want to spend our money.
I like this. Better than buying in lots of accountants, that's for sure.
Indeed.
So if you had one wish, if there was a magic fairy came along and said, I'll grant you one wish, what would you wish for to move the company on?
Ooh, well, I mean, money does fix a lot of things, quite frankly, Hugh. No, you know what? If I could wish for anything, I would just wish for our team that we've established to just continue to be healthy, continue to grow. Hopefully no more global pandemics to put everything at risk. I mean, I'm really confident that we're on a path to do exactly what we set out to do, which is hopefully revolutionize the project studio is really what we want to do. I really believe that we're doing it. It's just as long as things outside of our control, like global pandemics, don't derail us, I think we're on our way.
Long may your enthusiasms continue, and I look forward to seeing whatever products you come up with next. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Sean.
Pleasure is mine, Hugh. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for listening. Please check out the show notes page for this episode, where you'll find further information along with web links and details of all the other episodes. And lastly, please check out the soundonsound.com/podcast website page to explore what's available on all our other channels.